We need to ensure that all students, regardless of their socioeconomic background, have got access to technology for learning.
So if all of those students are just simply going to have access to the internet, teachers are going to want control of that. And that's going to be paramount to them to kind of maintain an effective and functional classroom. So we really owe it to our students to prepare them for college and career readiness by building their digital literacy skills.
The only thing I think that we're frustrated about is the fact that we didn't find out about it sooner.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight on Student Digital Safety, the Courier podcast, where we unpack the most interesting stories, strategies, and learnings on student digital safety for schools, by schools leading the way all around the world. I'm your host, Yasmin London, and I am so excited to welcome to today's Spotlight guest. We've got two today, so double trouble. We've got Matt Petit, Director of Information Technology, and Devin Page, Technology Integration Specialist from Calvert County Public Schools in Maryland, West Virginia. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So great to have you on. There's so much going on, I guess, in the world of digital safety and technology at the moment. I'm really, really excited to hear what you're doing in your school district. It sounds like you've made some incredible strides. But one of the things that I do like to start with is to sort of figure out the lay of the land according to you both when it comes to digital safety. So when you look at schools and the digital landscape today and what your experiences are, we know that there's negatives, but there's also positives. So I want to know what excites you the most when you think of schools and digital safety today.
I'll start with that. So what excites me the most, and maybe has most of my career, is just the expanded potential for learning that the digital landscape provides. I mean, we are like solidly in the third decade of educating 21st century learners. It's a term that's probably been played out since we're like 30 years in. Over the past, or almost 30 years in, over these past 20 years of the 21st century that we're living in, educators across the country and here locally in Calvert County and Maryland have done just an amazing job of leveraging the potential of technology, providing distance learning opportunities, video conferencing with experts, virtual field trips, interactive lessons, digital resources, which really now supplement hard copy materials. Sometimes you have both. And all blended learning opportunities. Something that we're really trying to push here in Calvert County is blended learning for teachers in the classroom. But just as has always been the case, and was the case in the dawn of the internet age, in the hands of talented educators, students and teachers are going to recreate learning. They're going to recreate and jointly collaborate with each other to kind of reshape and reimagine what learning can look like. And that's really amplified in a digital landscape. It's almost like as if what a teacher can do in the classroom and a student can do, the canvas has been broadened and widened because of the digital age. And so that's just super exciting to me. Kind of has been my entire career. And I think that's also the case nowadays.
What an answer. Absolutely nailed it, Devin. I think it's so exciting, isn't it? It's we can get pulled into this, I guess, concern and fear-based mentality sometimes, but it's really important to know that there's light and shade to all of these things and that there's so many positives that come out of the evolution of technology, particularly for schools, for students, staff, and even parents integrating in. Matt, what about you? What are you most excited about?
I'm just going to really kind of echo a lot of what Devin said. He's out on the he's out in the field, working with the teachers and educators, helping to integrate the new technologies and platforms that we've procured. So I'm just going to go with his answer on that one, and just echo some of the same sentiments.
Fantastic. It's great when we all agree. And look, there are many positive aspects, as Devin mentioned. One of the things that I did want to ask, I guess, before we get started is there's over in Australia and certainly I know in the UK and in New Zealand, the film, the Netflix series Adolescence has been really hot. Is that something that you're seeing over in the US? Is that starting to, I guess, generate conversation around digital safety in schools over in your neck of the woods?
I have personally have not. I have seen the Netflix advertisements for that movie, but I
Mhm.
have actually not tuned into that yet. It's something I'm certainly interested in. So I can't say that that movie's spurred anything, but being an IT director for a pretty large school system, it's certainly been on the forefront of my mind. And now that you've mentioned it, I'll have to put that Netflix flick at the top of my list.
Yeah, it's heavy watching, I'll say that, but really interesting, I guess, in terms of the conversation that's being had around digital safety. Devin, have you seen it?
I have not seen it. I think I've heard whispers of it, but so like Matt, I'm gonna have to catch it on the back end, and then maybe we can
Yeah.
give you our movie review of it. But I mean, I there have been, I think there was a documentary, something along the lines of social media and how it impacts adolescents. And if this Netflix documentary that you're referring to has the same flavor as the one I watched a couple of years ago, it was actually super scary in terms of
Mhm.
what the potential for children's use of social media could be on the brain development, mental health. So those are certainly concerns that we have in Calvert County Public Schools, and I think educators across the globe in a digital age.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's a hot tip for both of you to watch, and certainly one that if it's not over in the US in a big way, it shortly will be. But it is centered around a boy called Jamie in a UK town who unfortunately gets really sucked into the manospheric online radicalization style content, the misogynistic, anti-feminist content, and I won't ruin it, but he commits a crime, and it shocks the town, I guess, and really starts conversations around the impacts of this sort of content on young minds. So a really, really good one. And I guess speaks to the importance of visibility with technology, which is what we're talking about today. Really making sure that we're not just sort of blocking content and I guess reporting in basic terms, but how do we get down to that granular level where we're starting to see patterns of behavior, where we're starting to really get to the good stuff when it comes to the tech that's available? Now, Matt, your school recently made a fairly significant commitment by shifting to one managed devices. The evolution away from BYOD in many schools around the world is real. Can you tell me a bit more about this project and what the driving force was behind the decision?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd say there were three main factors that contributed to the shift. The first one was to dealing with equity and access to digital resources. We need to ensure that all students, regardless of their socioeconomic background, have got access to technology for learning. This also provides consistent access to online resources for students, not only at school, but at home. And in fact, nearly all of our textbooks now are digital. So students don't carry around multiple textbooks all day. It's basically just one laptop. And with
Mm.
regards to testing, most of our state assessments are all online. So having this one-to-one model helps streamline testing administration and saving instructional time and resources. So I'd say that was one big factor. The second one would be a big push to personalized or learning and differentiated instruction. Our one-to-one laptop model that we have for students in grades 3 through 12, it helps teachers differentiate instruction, allowing students sometimes to learn at their own pace with adaptive software and lesson plans. It also encourages engagement through multimedia resources and hands-on learning opportunities for students. And the last one, certainly a charge that we've always had, is ensuring that our students are college and career ready. We really need to equip our students with 21st century skills like collaboration and problem solving to prepare them for college and careers where digital proficiency is essential. So having our one-to-one laptop initiative also enabled teachers to extend learning beyond the classroom through flipped and blended learning models. So I'd say all three of those kind of were an impetus for the movement.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a fairly significant investment that your school district has made. And I imagine lots of our listeners today have sort of thought about changing over to one devices, but obviously, budget is a really big issue there. How did you get it across the line? What finally pushed you, I guess, to make that leap and to get that buy in across your school stakeholders to make that happen?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there was like any one defining moment that pushed us to make the leap into one to one. However, I know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, it forced a lot of school districts to adopt remote learning and issue laptops to students. So many districts were forced into a one to one model, and that was a defining moment that required a lot of them to make the leap. But we had begun to transition to the one to one model a couple years before the pandemic. So our rationale for the shift really occurred over time, and I'd say the main impetus behind it was the push from our Department of Instruction, and really I should probably turn it over to Devin now, since he's in instruction, to talk about some of the instructional needs and focuses that we had, maybe that caused the shift to the one to one initiative.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about so Matt's in the Department of Information Technology, and I'm in the Department of Instruction, but we collaborate. He and I, his department and my department, a lot. I'm in technically the Office of Digital Learning, which is kind of a wing of the Department of Instruction. And I mean, I would just say that as the internet, as I talked about, 21st century learner, the internet expanded over the past, prior to the 21st century. But materials began to really kind of either migrate online or expand to include hard copy and digital versions of the same materials, like textbooks, like I mentioned before. And with that, when that happened, it really just became apparent that we had to head toward the direction of one to one. It was sort of, you could see kind of the writing on the wall. And we also know that today's students, and Matt alluded to this when he talked about college and career readiness, will shift jobs depending on what your sources are, maybe even careers an average of 4 times or 3 to 7 times in their lifetime. And the chances are that some of these jobs are going to require digital proficiency. That's really kind of a high likelihood for any number of jobs that students are going to have, these millennials and Gen Z. So we really owe it to our students to prepare them for college and career readiness by building their digital literacy skills. And we're going to need to be one to one to do that. Computer labs or shared laptop carts, those are just not going to suffice as those needs become greater and greater.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The future of personalization and career readiness, they're critical considerations for schools, aren't they? There's a mindset where there's a lot of blocking and banning around the way that kids are using technology, but ultimately our role as educators and school leaders is to build, ethical, resilient, knowledgeable digital citizens, isn't it? So that they can go out and really contribute to society really well. When it comes to other considerations around this, what about the teachers? Were they pushing for more control over what was happening in the classroom as well? What were the challenges they were facing that you were hearing about?
I mean, absolutely. Like, so as a teacher, and Matt and I were actually both social studies teachers. And he's been in kind of the central office role for a very long time. I've only been out of the classroom for 3 years. And so, I
Mm,
can just say from experience, and we all know teachers crave and seek to, take advantage of all the different kind of tools they can, whether they're digital tools or whether they're, any kind of creative tool that a teacher might use at their disposal within their toolbox to enhance learning, but they want to ensure that those tools are going to be efficient and that they're going to be effective.
mm.
That's always the case. And again, digital or not. So teachers do recognize the advantage of going to one that Matt spoke of, but they also, as you kind of alluded to, they want control. They want to maintain control, even if it's whatever students might be doing on a digital device. So teachers kind of have retained a fear of placing computers with the entirety of the internet into hands of
Mm.
kids who are ages, let's say 8 to 18, from third grade to 12th grade. That's where our one-to-one laptops kind of that's the breadth of the students who have one-to-one laptops. So if all of those students are just simply going to have access to the internet, teachers are going to want control of that, and that's going to be paramount to them to kind of maintain an effective and functional classroom to maximize learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to know what tools you implemented and how you gained those deeper insights. But before we get to that, what were you seeing around student behaviors what were the early warning signs that you were starting to see? perhaps there were problems, that this was potentially a bigger issue than you expected. Were there any situations or examples that either of you could share about, I guess, the student behaviors that led to this control and visibility decision?
No, I'm just with specific, you know, early warning signs. I wouldn't say that there was kind of a specific set of circumstances that caused us to want to purchase or dive into a tool that was going to give teachers more control, other than just the fact that the expansion of the internet has kind of it's like a two-sided coin, right? So there's like the positives of that, but there's also a negative of all of the different things that students can access that we really don't want them to access. And from YouTube to games that students can play online, those would be, I think the early warning signs would be the students' proclivity for getting distracted or pulling into distractions that might be games that they could play in the laptop. I would also say that the first kind of thing that kind of stood out as something that we need to kind of pull back was cell phone use. And cell phone use caused students with the growth of social media, and particularly things like Instagram and Snapchat that kind of appeal to youngsters, as something that was an easy distractor. But we address that in Calvert County Public Schools. We're beyond about a year, a little over a year of a new policy we put in that really curbs our cell phone use. But a lot of those same behaviors can be replicated on the laptop, and we know that. And so kind of like to pair with our new policy that really kind of locked down students' use of cell phones in Calvert County Public Schools, we had to follow up with another thing that was going to kind of curb their tendency to want to get off task on laptops. And so I think that's kind of the best answer to the question about early warning signs that kind of wanted us to dive into the tools we have now.
Just one thing one thing to piggyback to that, I'd like to add, would just be, I think a lot of it was, we truthfully at the time didn't really, I don't think anybody really understood the extent of the problem. There were, I think maybe Devin used the word, some hints, some early, maybe some minor little signs out there that teachers would pick up on. But students are really savvy. When there's nobody or no software that's monitoring their online activity, I mean, they can get very creative with how they kind of hide things, and they can do things really without the teacher knowing. And so, sometimes we had teachers that came to us from other districts and would tell us about the software. And it only took actually the first one that came to me, and it piqued my interest immediately, because I knew this was an issue that teachers were having. And really having a teacher come from another district that had similar software, they informed us of it. And then immediately we went to research it, and we researched several different companies, and obviously moved forward with LineWise. And we've now that the ClassWise that we've put in that monitoring tool, now we've really seen the signs that we probably could have or should have seen in the past. It was just impossible to know it because of how kind of crafty students can be in hiding their online activity. So now we've got a great resource using the application through LineWise. Now our teachers are really able to monitor that online behavior. So the only thing I think that we're frustrated about is the fact that we didn't find out about it sooner and couldn't implement a solution sooner.
Can I jump into that? Can I add something real quick to that? Yeah, because I think actually I'll credit Matt here a lot, because he talks about a teacher coming from a different district and kind of sharing with us what they had in another district that they, was controlling students' online activity. And Matt really pursued that. I mean, he pushed for looking at different opportunities for us to have the tools we have now. And I didn't, I was a teacher in the classroom and saw some of the things that were, students playing games when they shouldn't have been. And what we had been told as teachers was, you really have to engage with students. You have to monitor the classroom. You don't want to be sitting behind your desk. You want to be out and about, roaming around the class and interacting with your students. And that's going to take care of, students trying to be off task. But the question is that sustainable? When you have one teacher in a classroom with 25 students and they're all kind of working on a computer and where the screen is facing those students. I should have known that there was a need for this earlier. I think Matt kind of alluded to maybe we should have known that students might have been doing some things that we now know with ClassWise, that we really have kind of our eyes have been opened. My own son, even when he was at home, would claim he was playing a game on his laptop that was an elementary platform regarding math called Dreambox, and Dreambox allowed you to play math games. But I once walked behind him and I saw him do the 4-finger swipe on his trackpad to go to a different desktop, and I said, "Whoa!" I literally did not know you could do that. So my 10-year-old son taught me something that I then now was able to see students doing in the classroom. So I think over time it just became an awareness on our part that that's unsustainable advice for teachers. It's just to kind of roam around the room, and also you don't want them to to feel like they don't have the control that you talked about. Teachers yearn to have in the classroom.
And Yasmin, just one thing to add too. My wife is we actually met at this high school about 25 years ago. She still works at that same high school, and so I obviously have her, but many other folks that I've continued to keep in contact with, both teachers in the classroom and administrators. And just the two biggest pushes they had, and I know Devin already alluded to one of them, and that was the issue with the cell phones in class. With solutions like ClassWise, if you still allow cell phones in class, it's going to basically render that software useless, because students can get on their cell phones and get on their cellular network and don't have to go through our content filters, and so. If you're going to give them a laptop with content filters and controls and ClassWise software and all these things, but then they've got another device that's unfettered access to the internet. Yeah. So that's really kind of step one, was critical to get that out. But then secondly, again, the ability to be able to monitor our students' online behavior, and not only monitor what they're doing, but even be able to open up new sessions and be able to open up a new web page where we want them to go, so that maybe they can't go to any other web pages, and we know they're going to be focused where we want them to be. Being able to have those that type of ability as a teacher, to empower myself and my students, it's just been transformational. So really, I think that dual approach of getting the cell phones out of classrooms and getting in, software that can not only monitor, but really help teachers become, more facilitators, I think is critical. And it's what really it's been a huge project for us the past couple of years, and it's been super exciting.
Yeah, I think there's so much to unpack with what you just shared. But the first thing that comes to mind is something that I think so many schools are really grappling with. In that, back in the day, we had teachers that could rely on eyes and ears alone. The roaming around the classrooms, knowing the students, knowing what's going on in their family lives, and what to be looking for. But ultimately, this whole conversation has really outlined that we don't even know what we don't know. We don't know what kids are getting up to. We don't understand the tricks that 10-year-olds have when it comes to being able to get rid of a desktop, and to create a second one. So we do need technology to help us evolve. And what I'm hearing from both of you here is schools who choose to step up, who choose to take ownership, who say, we're banning cell phones, but we're putting a tool like ClassWise into the classrooms to control this experience and really personalize it. They're the ones who are going to win in this game, aren't they? They're the ones that are the innovators, the ones that are going to get the results, and the positive, I guess, reinforcement from all stakeholders. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I would 100% agree. I think every single stakeholder is a winner here. Teachers being able to facilitate the type of lessons that they want and know that the students are going to be using these devices as devices for productivity, not devices of distraction. Just to give teachers that confidence. So that's huge for them. And then students also. Oftentimes students get upset with discipline, but I'm a former volleyball coach as well, and a lot of times my players would kind of openly get frustrated about some of the difficult things that we would do in practice, and some of the discipline and some of the rules and regulations. But on the side, privately, they would admit that they know that it makes them better, and they kind of needed some of those guardrails up, and they needed to be pushed, and they'd admit those things privately. And we've had many students doing the same thing. Because when they can do something, if it's relatively easy, even if they know they shouldn't, students will often do it. And if we can just put up these guardrails and, to prevent them from doing it, they're going to, I think they know what's right and they appreciate it. And I think even though our number one search term for a lot of students is how to get around class-wise, students are trying to beat it. We do have a lot of students, again, ultimately, when they kind of do give in and realize that this really is what's best for them. And we've seen, with students getting the cell phones out and getting the class-wise software in, we've seen students just, their attention greatly increase, and most importantly, achievement go up.
Yeah, exactly. I think in the end, look, kids will be kids and they don't want to admit when maybe something isn't working for them and they don't want to lose face. And so that's also our jobs in schools, isn't it? To do what's best for them and to really understand the environment in which they operate to try and achieve the best for them. Beyond keeping students focused, because that's obviously a really big issue and something that all schools are really zeroed in on. Were there any other unexpected benefits? Devin, I remember you sharing something about a factoring example. Could you
Yeah.
share a bit about an unexpected benefit when it comes to that?
Well, 100%. I'll start with that one. There are others, but so I was in a high school math teacher's classroom, and I was kind of troubleshooting something else. And while I was there, he was teaching a factoring lesson using manipulatives like kind of blocks and units and rows of a certain unit of measurement. And he would give it a potential problem: create a rectangle using one 3x6 block and three, items of a row with three blocks each, and then 6 units of individual blocks, and then create a rectangle however you can do that. But he was running classwise, and he's got classwise on his screen, but he's got the problem on the smartboard. So he freezes the smartboard and he watches these students try to problem solve and come up with how to create a rectangle with those different requirements. And he'll see students trying to solve the problem in different ways and successfully solving the problem in different ways. And so he has an awesome relationship with his students, and he would just go to one of his students and say, "Hey, that's really cool how you did that. Do you mind if I show that to the class?" And so, and invariably, and I've watched him do this every single time he asked a student, they always said yes. So he would go back and he would unfreeze the smartboard, put that one student's tile into live view. So it's like full screen view. And the students would see that particular solution and they would talk about it and discuss how that student kind of solved the problem, so to speak. And then he would do it again. He would kind of let the kids try to figure it out. Some kids kind of mimicked what they saw on the smartboard. Others have figured out a different way to do it. And so we'd say, "Hey, you had the same, you solved the same solution with the same parameters, but you did it a different way. So can we show the class how you did it?" And so he would do the same thing and put it in live view. And then the students would see yet another way to solve that same problem. And it was just such a unique way to use ClassWise and to use live view that I had not even anticipated as we were sort of walking teachers through and training teachers on how to use ClassWise. That I think that's the beauty of education, right? Like teachers are given the tools and there are best practices, and we all know what those best practices are. You talked about communication, engaging with your students, getting to know your students. But then really talented teachers are going to think of a creative way to use ClassWise to make it a tool for, as you said, personalized learning, and also kind of like facilitate discussion and problem solving amongst their students and with their students. So I was just super excited about that. And I will be sharing that with all of the schools in my district as a way to kind of promote not just what ClassWise can do to monitor students, but what ClassWise can do as a kind of as an instructional tool. I'll give you another one too. A middle school English teacher was telling me how she used ClassWise as a formative assessment tool. She would see different things that students were doing as a way to kind of maybe a writing sample or a written response that students were producing. And based on their writing that she could see in ClassWise, she would then differentiate her lesson accordingly and sometimes even plan the next day's lesson based on what she had witnessed in ClassWise on different students' computers. So those are just two examples of how ClassWise is a productivity tool, an engagement tool, a tool that can make learning that much more robust and interactive with students. I mean, there used to be a kind of an attachment you could put on top of a smartboard projector that would then connect through Bluetooth to students' computers. And we thought that was the most innovative thing. And oh, wow, you can take what a student is doing on their computer, and you can show the entire class what that student's doing. Well, ClassWise can do that, times 25 because you have live view in ClassWise. So it was just a wonderfully creative example of what teachers do when they have a tool that they can be creative with.
I absolutely love that. I mean, literally last night, I was helping my 10-year-old daughter with her homework, and we're going through, the importance of mapping how you came to a particular answer. And that a lot of the time, when it comes to your teachers, it's really important for them to see how you work it out rather than the result. And this is so important across the board. So to be able to do that with technology now, and to not only do it but utilize examples of other students thinking for everybody else to learn from, it's really exciting. That's innovation. It's not just about distractions and safety. It's great to be able to tick those boxes, but this is where students really learn and grow, and that engagement, I guess, in a lesson or in a class is just amplified. So it's incredible to hear these stories, and expect the unexpected when we start to put these tools into the hands of teachers and classrooms, and of course those innovative, very switched on students that we have across the world. Now, there's so many benefits to a tool like ClassWise, but it does take buy-in, I guess, from multiple stakeholders across a school or a district board, for example, to sort of have it implemented. Matt, how did you do that? Who are the key people that you had to engage with to achieve the success that you have?
Ah, boy. So, with this one, it was so critical to engage with a rollout, district wide rollout of this size. It's going to be basically rolled out in every third through 12th grade classroom. We really needed to tap into all stakeholders. Working with the Office of Digital Learning and Instruction, because they've got several integration specialists, who are in the schools, who get to work, with teachers, was critical to get them on board. Because first off, we had to figure out what application that we wanted to use. Because as great as LineWise is, obviously you guys have got a bunch of competitors as well. So the first order of business was kind of even figuring out, what solution we wanted to move forward with. And so that was a collaborative effort between both instruction and the IT department. From there, once the decision was made to move forward with LineWise and use their applications and tools, that's then when we really needed to engage with several pilot teachers as well just to make sure that everything is working properly as expected. Obviously, we needed to tap into quite a bit of IT staff as well, like our network engineers, to ensure there weren't going to be any conflicts, with any of our existing content filters or just any of the back end IT pieces, applications that we had set up. On down to student services and administrators in buildings to get feedback from them, even legal. We haven't rolled out the monitor product yet, but things like that. Sometimes you need to get legal involved to find out what some of the responsibilities will be. So just in a rollout like this, I just cannot emphasize communication and collaboration enough. You've got to include all stakeholders, and I certainly did not mean to leave out parents. You've got to communicate with them what's going on, why it's happening, when it's going to happen, that it's a partnership with them. And so just really, really critical to not only identify and include all the stakeholders, but to consistently communicate with them throughout the entire process. And I think this, for us, at least in our system, it's been such a great example for how our two departments in instruction and IT, can collaborate and work together. We tag team all of this. Whenever an issue comes, if it comes Devin's way or if it comes our way in IT, we constantly communicate. We have weekly meetings with each other. But again, involving all the stakeholders is critical. And I know a lot of folks say that and provide lip service about it, but I just can't overemphasize the importance of communicating with everybody consistently.
Yeah, it's always a better thing to over communicate than under communicate, isn't it? When you've got this many stakeholders, parents, teachers, IT staff, engineers, student services, admins, legals, there's got to be a lot of concerns. Were there any sort of key concerns, Matt, that came up for those stakeholder groups? Was there anything a consistent problem that you needed to address?
I think just the biggest concerns, at the beginning, they were technical. It's it's a very robust application, and there's lots of different settings and ways that it can impact your network. So the biggest piece was just getting it off the ground from a technical standpoint, making sure there weren't any conflicts with our network, and there were certainly some growing pains with that. But another huge piece is regardless of who of what vendor a school district might select, ensuring that you've got a good support team. Because these issues come up across the board with all vendors when you're talking about software this robust. So you've really got to have a strong support team with the vendor you use. And I just the part of the reason we're on this podcast here with LineWise is just such a phenomenal team there, especially the support team that has weekly. Continued to have weekly or biweekly meetings with us, during the entire rollout, as well as we've been into it for a few months, and they've just been a fantastic partner as well. So um, any district out there that's looking for software of this size and magnitude and scope, certainly make sure you do your homework and that you reach out to other districts and find out about the type of support that you're going to get.
I think that's great advice. Look, in the end, as much as we love hearing this fantastic feedback for LineWise, but ultimately, I think our mission is to make sure that schools are looking at this as a category of solution. If they're not looking at it at the moment, backtracking to our conversation earlier about another school district leader sharing that this even existed for you, Matt. That's what we want to make sure we're encouraging here is that schools actually have the tools that they need, that they're sort of moving along with the evolution of technology and not using tech that's not fit for purpose anymore. I think that's the really important thing to remember. There are solutions out there, but making sure the right one that fits for your school or district is really important. On that, and this is a question, I guess, for you, Matt, but of course you, Devin, as well, is if a school wanted to implement class-wise or a similar system, tomorrow, what are the first steps that they should take? What would they need?
Well, the first thing again, well, have they decided on what product they're gonna implement? Is first you got to obviously figure out which solution you're going to move forward with, and then once you've done that, making sure that your stakeholders in your district, be it the IT team, be it instruction, student services, different administrators. Your various chiefs, just making sure that they're all very well aware of what's going on, what the issue is, because this issue, if a school system doesn't have a solution like ClassWise, everybody knows the issue, but it should be clearly laid out with examples of what's happening. And then you lay out what the solution is and then the steps that it's going to take. I mean, just methodically laying everything out, creating timelines with folks, assigning points of contact so that we know exactly what the roles and responsibilities of everyone on our team is going to be, as well as the roles and responsibilities with the vendor, with LineWise, to know what we're going to be responsible for and what they're going to be responsible for. So just really laying out timelines with many goals involved and including all the stakeholders. Communication to parents is going to be critical. First off, communication to staff, though. A lot of times folks will even forget about that. They'll tell the parents and they'll forget to tell their staff what's coming. So obviously, first you need to talk to the administrators in buildings. Then you would inform all staff so that they're aware. And then pretty shortly thereafter, making sure that the parents and the students are informed for what's coming. So again, just kind of more on the themes of constant collaboration and communication with all stakeholders. And then just again, working closely with the vendor and your technical folks in the IT department. As Devin said, I'm a former social studies teacher. So, I don't have a computer science background. I'm not a former network engineer by any means. So, I really had to tap into their expertise quite a bit. and put them in contact with the technical experts at Linewise. So just making sure you've got the right people on the bus, that the roles and responsibilities are clearly defined, and that the communication and collaboration is consistent.
I think that's fantastic advice. Devin, anything more to add from the coalface?
Um, just the not only is the consistency of communication important, but we I think made it a point to communicate in many different ways. So we made videos, we made kind of instructional videos in the beginning of the year. As we were changing our entire filtering system and how ClassWise was going to interact with the filtering system, Matt and myself and my supervisor collaborated on that video, and one of the other Office of Digital Learning specialists was the narrator for that video, and we did it. I mean, overtime. We made it a point to try to get it done as quickly as possible. We kind of had a deadline, and we worked overtime to get it done. And the technology integration specialist that did the narrating even did it over the weekend. So that was one thing. We also, Matt and I, just participated in at a kind of a digital learning night for parents at an elementary school, and we communicated to those who were in attendance how ClassWise works, and how we in Calvert County Public Schools value our students' safety online and social media. So it's the consistency of communication is key, and it has to be repetitive, right? You might not have read the email that you got last month, and so we have to kind of continue to send out some of those same communication pieces, but we also have to send them in different ways. A lot of schools have digital newsletters that they put out each week at the end of the week. And each of the Office of Digital Learning specialists try to include something related to what we are doing in the technology integration world in those digital newsletters. And oftentimes I'll send a ClassWise blast out to my team, and my team will put those in the newsletters as well. But really, and just kind of the quality of communication and the quality of cooperation and collaboration amongst the teams. So there's my team, and then there's Matt's, department of information technology, and the people that I've gotten to know that work for Matt. I've become close to as we have begun to collaborate together, and I'm finding myself, really relying on that kind of like three-way communication with Christy and others from Linewise who are part of their team, and I mean, Matt is not speaking hyperbolically when he says that the Linewise team communicates with us regularly and is super, super responsive. It is an absolute fact that if you have some concern or some question and you want to kind of address it, they're right back with you, either with an email response or it's on the agenda for the next time we meet, either weekly or biweekly. And that has been a tremendous, tremendous help.
I think one of the things that we focus on a lot at Linewise is really being shoulder to shoulder with school communities, that we are a local partner. We have, offices all around the world, but we work at a grassroots level to make sure that you have what you need, that you're feeling supported, but also to think proactively. What's that next step? What's that next piece of the puzzle that's gonna cross your path that they can really help with? So it's fantastic to hear such positive feedback. So I know that's a really high priority for our team. Now, we're coming to the end of our conversation, but I've got two more questions. And one of them, I guess, is particularly important because we want to see how you measure real, tangible, I guess, outcomes of success. What do you look for when it comes to implementing a tool like ClassWise or a technology piece or like that? What do you look for to know that it's working?
I can speak to one thing real quickly. So we can get the data, the back end data on usage across a district. How often is it being used by which teachers, in which parts of the district, in which schools. We also have academic outcomes, which is what we do. We're a school district, so we're educating students. So when we see the academic gains, not just behavioral, because we talked about ClassWise really kind of being a good monitoring tool, but those gains can be traced back to the depth of engagement among students that really is, kind of part of what happens just naturally when students are not off task. And that efficiency that ClassWise helps create then translates to more focused students and fewer distractions and improved products, and also improved student retention of content. One of the things you mentioned when you asked about have there been any positive surprises, and I've heard from several we have what's called a behavioral development program, and that's BDP. So BDP teachers are saying that even their classes are more engaged and more focused and more efficient. And so when you talk about measuring success, I mean, what better measurement do you get than academic outcomes? It really does not just start with class-wise, but it starts with the teachers' relationships in the classroom and working with students in all the ways that we know are the best practices, but then integrating class-wise with that.
Yeah. And the staff buy-in, as you've both mentioned, that's a critical piece. I think, Matt, you mentioned it, making sure that they're informed, engaged, and excited about what's happening, because ultimately that is that sweet spot where we do start to see those academic outcomes, the engagement, the focus from students, and then the results that all schools and districts want, which is, engaged learners, great reputations. We're not going to say that that's not a factor as well. We want to make sure that we're seen as a school that's doing things differently and doing things well. What else, Matt? What other things would you add to Devin's comments about how you'll measure success?
Yeah. Pretty much everybody's going to probably use some sort of quantitative and or qualitative data, right, to measure success of a new initiative. One area that ClassWise is also really strong with is usage analytics. So we can run reports, and ClassWise can furnish reports for us that track how many teachers log into the platform, how many ClassWise sessions are run on an average day, and even which specific features are being utilized. That provides some pretty good quantitative data. We also solicited feedback from teachers using surveys to understand the issues that they're having, and maybe any of the reasons why they might not be using the product. So running the usage analytic reports that the ClassWise offers in conjunction with soliciting feedback via the online surveys, I think are two effective ways that, we can gauge the success of the rollout. And ultimately, I mean, obviously, it's going to be the key here is going to be student achievement, right? So we're really excited to look for increases in student achievement. And while we may not be able to pin that entirely on the rollout of ClassWise, it will be interesting to see what type of quantitative data that we're going to be able to generate regarding student achievement, because that's really what it comes down to. That's what we're charged with, and we want to. We're here to teach. Students are here to learn and achieve, and we want them to be productive citizens when they graduate, and that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I think in the end, talking about usage analytics and data and reflecting, I guess, taking those moments to make sure that what you were hoping to achieve is actually being achieved. And those little moments where we can tweak and redirect are equally as important. But some really great comments there. Now, we've gone through so
Can I
much
mention one other
today.
thing?
Yes, Devin, please go for it. I love
So
it.
not only can Christy and LineWise, I say Christy, but it's really LineWise, share usage data and the analytics with us, and we can also generate those reports ourselves. But when we surveyed teachers on their experience with ClassWise, we actually shared that back with LineWise, so they actually got our results as well. And not only that, this goes back to the communication piece. We then assimilated and distilled all of the different feedback from the quantitative feedback, which was just like the percentage of teachers who use ClassWise and teachers kind of like responding to kind of a Likert scale question versus also kind of an open-ended text-based question. We took all that data and then we condensed it, and then we then went back out with an all-staff communication and set up times to have training sessions with our staff on ClassWise, and those training sessions were run by LineWise virtually. So we're measuring success, but then based on how we're getting those success measurements, we're then being proactive about what we do in Calvert County Public Schools with ClassWise. So I just want to get that out there as well.
No, I love that, Devin.
That just also, I think, highlights the collaborative just efforts that we have with LineWise, because we identified an issue with some teachers. Some of them wanted in-person training, which Devin and his team could provide. Some of them wanted training online by LineWise professionals, and you guys offered and held multiple sessions for us. So again, that wasn't anything that was in the plan, but it was just something that LineWise support saw and worked with us on and held those sessions. And again, we view it as a partnership, that we hope to continue on for many years to come.
Oh, that is fantastic to hear. It is a partnership. Ultimately, everybody's in this business for the well-being and academic outcomes of students to make sure that they achieve their potential. And that takes a village a lot of the time, and it takes personalization, and it takes what we call discretionary effort in any way that we can. So really important to hear that. And thank you for sharing that. The last question is really just about one key takeaway that you'd love our listeners to know, to think about, to try based on your experience of this concept of creating visibility, I guess, in schools with the right technology. You've talked a lot about ClassWise. We've talked about the fact that we want to create, I guess at Calvert County, you want to create personalized approaches to student learning, that you want to make sure that they're college and career ready. So, if you had one piece of advice each to share as a takeaway when it comes to student digital safety in schools, what would it be? Matt, do you want to start? Oh, Devin?
Sure.
I knew.
I can start. We'll let Devin finish. He's a little bit more eloquent
The
than me,
finale.
so I'll start. Yeah, I personally believe that everything we've talked about today and then some is going to be prevalent, inherent in every single district in the country, and within 4 to 5 years. Things like AI powered behavioral threat detection systems, they're going to be standard in public schools. Using things like real time analysis of student digital activity, their communications and their patterns to proactively identify and flag potential safety threats. Things like cyberbullying, self harm, school violence. Identifying those things before they escalate. And so, we didn't talk about that system today, but it's another that LineWise offers, and we're very excited, to roll that out in the coming months as well. That's something that I think everybody should really be aware of. If you don't have, the monitoring software yet, that like ClassWise, if you don't have software that parents can leverage, where they too can potentially install the software on their child's own personal devices. And if you take a laptop home with the student that the district that the district provides, you can empower parents to pause the internet or write their own rules for sites that they want or don't want their students to go to. So just this entire partnership. Dealing with really digital collaboration and ensuring that our students are working safely and productively online, that we're proactively finding out issues that occur, hopefully, again, before they escalate or happen, and then also empowering parents to be able to do the same thing with their students. Not only with the classwork that they're doing in school, but the time that they're on these devices outside of school. So I think every district in the country is going to have these types of platforms. We've rolled out one, and we're really excited, and we're in the midst of rolling out the other two. And so we're excited to have all three here come next fall.
Fantastic. Thank you, Matt. It is really about layering, I guess, different types of technology, fit for purpose technology. And when they integrate and work together, it's a really, really beautiful thing. Devin, a last key takeaway from you.
Yeah, so like that phrase, once you see something, you can't unsee it. Well, I really feel like that kind of applies to ClassWise in the sense that, as we have talked about a couple times in this podcast, we've seen now with evidence of what really hard evidence of what we may have suspected students were doing, but now we've confirmed it, or also maybe even didn't know students were doing. And now that we've seen that, we can't unsee that. So I could not imagine if we were to take ClassWise away from Calvert County Public Schools, the response we would get from teachers because of how they now are dependent on it, how important it is as a tool for them as a way to not only just monitor students, but as we talked about, also enhance learning, to be creative in the classroom with instructional, creative ways ClassWise can be used instructionally. So that just, I think, speaks to the value of a tool like ClassWise in today's 21st century classroom, when so much of what we do is digitized, and we have so many online resources. it's almost irresponsible not to have something like ClassWise when you have students using the internet as often as they are for the different reasons we have them using, online tools, not just for digital textbooks, but we test them online. We have online platforms that monitor their progress and academic gains throughout the year. And ClassWise is critical, or a tool like ClassWise is critical for making sure that these tools are as efficient as possible. So I just think that idea of once you see it, once you're kind of you got to peek behind the curtain, we realize its value, and we are, I think, even that much more appreciative of what ClassWise allows us to do in maximizing efficiency. And the other thing is regarding the Custodio app and the other things that we're going to be using in class, that LineWise provides. I'm a parent, as Yasmin, you and I talked about. I have a senior in high school right now. She's got 27 more days of being a senior and being a student in Calvert County Public Schools, and I am one of the test. We have a few of us in that are in information technology and technology integration specialists who also have students, and we'll be testing the Custodio app. And so it's just, I'm super excited to see how that is going to transform parents' experiences as well, just like ClassWise has transformed teachers' experiences.
What a way to wrap up. I knew that, Matt did hand over to you, Devin, for a reason to wrap up so beautifully. But I think in the end, you've just reinforced exactly what we mentioned, that it is about having, multiple layers of tech tools fit for purpose, giving the right information to the right people at the right time. And yeah, once you've seen it, it's really impossible to look back. So thank you so much, Matt and Devin, for your time, for your insights, for your passion. Obviously, for LineWise, we love working with partners and schools and districts like yours. One of the things that we say at Qoria, which for our listeners, if you don't know who Qoria is, it's the parent company of LineWise. We often say that as the digital world evolves, so do we. So Matt and Devin, thank you so much for your insights and stories in helping us do just that today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening in. If you enjoyed today's episode of Qoria's Spotlight on Student Digital Safety, subscribe now, give us a follow, or reach out to let us know what you'd like to hear more about. Spotlight is all about providing useful information for schools by schools, and we can't wait to hear from you.